Thank you very much, Professor Castro. At the very outset, I'd like to thank the organizers of this symposium on maritime security cooperation for the East and South China Seas. And I would like to say that I've learned so much from all the interaction this morning and this afternoon. I'd like to start by saying that I believe it's very obvious that China's long-term objective is dominance, not just in the South China Sea, but in the West Pacific region. They aim to break out of the first island chain towards the second island chain. As early as in 1999, when I was still in Congress, I already said that they were aiming at occupying Scarborough Shoal and converting it into a military base. The occupation has happened, and soon, if the world doesn't stop China, they'll militarize Scarborough Shoal. In my opinion, the best Philippine strategy is to develop a credible defense and stick to the rule of law. There's still a lot of debate in the composition of what is credible defense because of the dynamics within the military and political establishment, but it is my hope that it would adopt a generally asymmetric warfare strategy consisting of shore-based missiles, missile boats, and a modest fleet of frigates and multi-role fighters. And now, I'd like to talk about the recent developments. Of course, there's EDCA. This is the Expanded Defense Cooperation Agreement with the United States, and our Supreme Court cleared the way already after a long review. I'd like to say that EDCA will be a game changer in the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific region, and this will be in the interest of the Philippines. The U.S. announced that they will push harder on territorial claims according to the Pacific Command. And my take on that, the U.S. Navy will find it easier to push back with EDCA in place, and that is already in progress. Another very interesting development is the result of the elections in Taiwan, where the new Taiwan president-elect called for freedom of navigation in the South China Sea, something that sounded strange before, and very surprisingly, closer ties with Japan. This is going to present a very complex situation for the diplomats, the foreign policy experts in China. There's work on a possible naval base in some parts of the Philippines to accommodate on a rotational basis the United States Navy. We are also, with interest, we are observing, we have monitored that Japan is intending to shift its Air Force posture south and will unveil a stealth demonstrator. My take on that, Japan adjusts to China's threat. The coalition against China is getting stronger every day, and I quote from that news. Behind this, the ASDF has signaled perhaps a more fundamental force shift south to better deter threats to Japan's long southeastern island chain, Nansei Shoto. In the mix, last week's unveiling of the Mitsubishi Heavy Industries stealth fighter demonstrated hints that Japan wants to at least pitch in domestic technologies and production for those later F-2 and F-15 replacements. We are always very interested in anything that will affect the balance of power, not only in the South China Sea, but in the entire Asia-Pacific area. Of course, there's the news U.S. sail by, and this resulted in another warning from China. My reaction to that, this U.S. Navy action appears to be in accordance with the new announcement of Admiral Harris, Commander, Pacific Command, that U.S. action in the South Pacific, in the South China Sea, will increase in complexity and scope. Complexity and scope, we still don't know how that is defined. This is good, in my opinion, this is good for Philippine security. A strong counterbalance against China's aggressiveness. The U.S. Navy announced that they will deploy a high-tech destroyer in the Pacific area. This is, of course, the much touted and much awaited Zumba, the super destroyer. I think somebody alluded to this. The Zumba, they call it the Batman ship. is touted as a one-man wrecking crew. It will be stationed in the Asia Pacific. It has the potential of altering the balance of power in the region. Vietnam also made an announcement through their prime minister, that they want a stronger U.S. role in the South China Sea. And this was followed by a statement from the Foreign Minister of Australia warning China against intimidating neighbors. And of course, the South China Sea runways, they already tested the 3,000 meter runway in Fire Cross Reef, sparked a warning from the United States, particularly the Vice Admiral Alcoin, the commander of the U.S. Navy 7th Fleet, who also urged Beijing to be more open over its intentions in the South China Sea. One major development is the U.S.-ASEAN summit hosted by President Obama. Now, this resulted in a declaration, the so-called Sunnylands Declaration. I think all of you are very familiar with this. And my comment on this is that the Sunnylands Agreement is a historic event as it cements an ASEAN bond against the use of force in resolving the South China Sea issue. It is a strong signal to China to adhere to the rule of law, especially UNCLOS in relation to its 9-Dutch line claim. The most important implication of the Sunnylands Agreement is on the imminent ruling by the Permanent Court of Arbitration in the Philippine case against China. Should the Philippines win, we can expect support from most of ASEAN to honor the ruling and scuttle its 9-Dutch line fiction. It is a tacit expression of support for any legal means to persuade China to adhere to the rule of law. This includes freedom of navigation patrols by the U.S. Navy and other navies of the world. The U.S.-ASEAN Accord is a result of China's over-aggressiveness, and in my opinion, this is now backfiring. And of course, this is a joint statement. Now, another development, there's been an acceleration of so many dramatic developments in this part of the world. China's missile deployment in the South China Sea, and a lot of the news stories headline this by saying that China just upped the stakes in the South China Sea. For the Philippines, it's about 400 nautical miles away, not that close. It is in the Woody Island area, and probably this is more of a danger to the air assets of the United States patrolling the area and closer to Vietnam, which historically owns the paracels. And there's an announcement that the U.S. will continue patrols despite South China Sea missile deployment. Australia also came into the picture together with New Zealand, urging China to show restraint in the South China Sea. And India as well came into the picture. So it's getting more complicated, more powers are getting involved. In the South China Sea situation, it is very important that the Philippines strengthen our security and economic engagement with India, that made a comment on this. As shown by the response of the US, Australia, and India, it now appears that the world is righteously coming up on China. And my comment on this appears to be an escalation of the militarization game in the South China Sea. It is meant to deter intrusion by US planes into the airspace of the paracels. It is around 200 nautical miles from the Spratlys, and not a threat, not an immediate threat to the Philippines, but it will delimit the movement of US air assets in the area. But this can be a prelude to China's full militarization of the artificial islands and the Spratlys, including Mischief Reef, which is well within our exclusive economic zone. China advances in a creeping manner. Should the paracels missiles go unchallenged, I predict the next move is to deploy missiles in Fire Cross Reef and even Mischief Reef. The development in the coming months will depend on how the US and even Japan and Australia respond to this reported missile deployment by China. The US also issued a warning on the arbitral tribunal result. What is this? The United States and the European Union warned China on Wednesday, this was last Wednesday, that it should respect an international court ruling expected later this year on its dispute with the Philippines over territory in the South China Sea. And again, I'd like to reiterate that because of this situation, because of international pressure, China cannot ignore the Arbitral Tribunal ruling, although it keeps on stating that it will not honor the Arbitral Tribunal ruling as if like a mantra. Australia also made a statement to the effect that this is part of the reaction to the parasites. Diplomats and security experts in contact with the Chinese military strategy say Beijing moves to arm and expand its long-established holding. Now, this jives in my early concern that China's next step is to deploy similar surface-to-air missiles in Pirate Cross Reef. And my final comment, I'd like to make my conclusion. Excuse me. I think I heard the bell already. My concluding remarks. We have witnessed in less than a month a series of very serious developments that have the potential of radically changing the balance of power in the area and critically destabilizing peace in the region. It is not clear whether China's moves are in anticipation of the adverse ruling from the Permanent Court of Arbitration, or this is part of their timetable. What is clear is that they are accelerating the program to change the facts on the ground to the detriment of the other coastal states of the South China Sea and the powers in the vicinity. The emerging alliance must take a more decisive action before it is too late. Allowing China to seize too much initiative would, I am afraid, necessitate a more forceful action in the future to stop them, and that would not be good for global peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary Golez.